Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Like I said in the introduction, I am here with Jeff, and we're going to get into all sorts of fun Bitcoin mining. I'm sure we're going to touch on hunting in the discussion. I'm sure we're going to, we're going to get into all sorts of stuff today. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Well, hey, it's not just me. Dot's here too.
Dot's here. Oh, of course. Yes. You know, Jeff, it's funny. We haven't met in person, but what I do know about you is that where there is you, Dot is also with you. So it's I should have known better.
Yeah, about 99% of the time. There's a few things I got to go do where I leave her at home, but when I'm out traveling, she's more dog than the wife feels comfortable taking care of, and when I'm traveling, I'm usually hunting anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, so she's a bird dog, right? That's most people that know you know you're out bird hunting in what, all 50, all the states. Have you hunted bird in all the states yet?
Not yet. About 15 years ago, I read a book called A Hunter's Road. And it was a sports writer who focused on birds, took a 6-month trip from Colorado to Wisconsin to Maine, down through Texas and back home over a 6-month period. And he chronicled all these great bird hunts that he went on. Now, he was connected, right? So he's a bird writer. So he didn't go to any dud kind of places. He went to all the good ones. But
Sure.
it was an inspiring story. And so I set a goal to hunt birds in all 50 states and 20 countries before I die. And I got a bird dog and hunted that Brittany for 10 years. And it started, 2 weeks at a time, then 3 weeks. And then I wore that dog out and got this one. And now I set the record this year. We were on the road for 3 months. And it was glorious.
Wow.
It was just glorious.
That's incredible. Yeah, I told you right before we hit record, I'd probably ask you a little bit about that. When I look at, like, most people get into hunting, they start, their dad brings them out hunting, and it's kind of really from childhood there on out, they're off and hunting. Mine was a little bit unconventional in that sense, where I started hunting 7 years ago, I think.
Nice.
And predominantly white-tailed deer. I'm up in,
Sure.
everyone's heard
Sure.
by now, I'm up in Minnesota. We have a little bit of pheasant, some turkey. Yeah.
No, you got some good pheasants.
We do.
Iowa,
Okay.
yeah. And I'll be there Thanksgiving week next year, tuning the mine. And so I haven't shot one in Minnesota. The mine's only like an hour south of Minnesota. So Minnesota's on the list for next year. We'll connect and we'll get you on a pheasant hunt.
Okay. Yeah, it's I know that there's good birds there's good pheasant in Iowa.
Don't tell. They don't like.
No, they're terrible. Yeah, you're right. There's hardly any of them there. They're small.
And you make a great point. So I hunt upland and waterfowl, and I'm an open invitation to hunt. So if you'd like to come hunt with me and you're around that area, just reach out, Twitter or whatever. And if you're in the Austin area, I have a ranch over north of San Antonio where we have some deer. If you'd like to shoot a deer, then let's have a conversation.
Oh, hey, there you go. Invites out there. I'm a terrible shot. I don't know what it is when it's moving. I can't hit it. So we'll have to fix that first. Then you can take me bird hunting.
You can go to, there's coaches are at the ranges. Just go to a range and sample it, pay for an hour, $50, and take what works and throw away what doesn't. And winnow through that, and you'll find yourself a good shot. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm out there bow hunting for whitetail deer. That's like bread and butter for me. That's like, so I'll spend most of my time shooting my bow. Whereas I'm sure if I spent a little bit of time, shooting skeet, that I could probably dial it in. It just, I tell you, if it's moving, I can't hit it. It's pretty funny to watch.
I'm kind of the opposite. I'm not really good with a rifle, never was, kind of stuff, and shotgun works good for me most of the time. But in target shooting, particularly in clay target shooting, you're not supposed to hit everyone. You're really not, and you're not supposed to hit every bird out there. So, what good does it do to get mad about the miss, right?
That's a good take. Well, I got to hit at least one, right? That's like I said, I'll get
something.
there. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll meet up in person pretty soon here. Like you said, you're not too far away from me. We're going to get into it. We'll have actual beers, and get into all that. So, Jeff, I'd love to start and kind of back us up here, because I know that we've been riffing a little bit, but I'd love to kind of back you up. And I personally really want to hear your background. Where were you coming from prior to Bitcoin mining? I'd love to hear that and that story and have you walk us through that.
Sure. I managed a Radio Shack when I was in graduate school in 83, 84, and learned how to program trash DOS, Model 2. I had my own little Model 4 portable, luggable, and just continued on that path. I have an MS and an MBA in ag economics, and I'm not involved in ag to speak of. I worked for insurance companies and programming or IT director for 4 years. Sorry, 6. And then got hired by an IT consulting company and worked for them for 2 years. And then in 94, got hired by a startup here in Texas and came home. Prior to that, I'd been wandering around and doing that kind of stuff. And so largely self-taught and had a proficiency for it. Worked in that startup and then started my own in 2000. Doing locally managed offshore software testing. And
sorry, what? One more time, Jeff. Locally, what was
managed, it? Locally managed offshore software testing.
Okay.
And still own that company today. The original plan for that was to, like every entrepreneur, build it to some great sum of money and then sell it. The only problem with that is either you take their shitty stock, you get some kind of crappy earnout when you don't have control, or you get cash. And, 2008 taught me that, the buddies with bonds are going to get bailed out. And if you're not one of the buddies, you're not going to get bailed out. And the conventional wisdom was, you take cash from your exit and you put it in bonds and you draw it down at 4%, right? But man, 2008 scared me. And I didn't know what to do. But I did know and was in a part of a CEO roundtable group at that time. And I just changed the business from a company to a business. And the difference is that I quit focusing on terminal value and exit value and started focusing on cash flow and sustainability. And
sure.
Then, guess in 2011, my barber had a subscription to Playboy, and I was reading an article about Gawker and Silk Road, and I just got it. It's like I understood what Bitcoin was immediately.
Oh wow!
And so started accumulating it just a little bit here and there. It's like, the story, why didn't you get more? It's like, dude, I wired $100 to China hoping for some digits on my phone. That's why. That's why. The beauty was at that time, right, there was so many different ways and all of them were hard, right? And so local Bitcoins or whatever Charlie Shrem was running at the time, or I could understand what I read in Bitcoin talk, but I didn't really get it at that time. And the other good info was over on Reddit, right? And so I was just trying to learn and learn and learn. And I just liked accumulating. It kept going up. And I can remember when Coinbase came on, and then finally they got the auto DCA turned on. I literally had a calendar reminder to go buy Coinbase every Monday morning.
There you go.
So that I could do my DCA. And I got interested in mining. I just, in the old days, I say in the old days, back when the marketing guys used to say, teach their kids and students in advertising that advertising is a money-making machine. You put in a nickel and you get out a dime. That's marketing and advertising. And I kind of got that, but man, when I saw Bitcoin miners, I knew that was a money-making machine. And I just wanted a part of that. I liked the network. I liked having to solve the problems, figure it out. It was like the old days when, we were on BBSs trying to find drivers and shit like that, right? I probably used terms that nobody understands anymore. But it was a puzzle to figure out.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic puzzle to figure out. I tried in the interim many times to mine on a CPU, and I just couldn't get it working. And I didn't have time in the evening. I was running one company, and I just bought another one that did educational software. So when being able to buy an S9 or horribly a Dragon like I bought, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
I could just plug it in.
Yeah. What? So was it like just physically figuring out how to get the ASICs, the Bitcoin miners to work? Is that what you liked about? Because you mentioned that you liked the problem solving. Was it the problem solving of that, or did you like the computational effort that the Bitcoin miners were actually doing?
I like that it presented a puzzle that was an opportunity, right? Here's your box, plug it in, now figure it out, right? And then, well, what does this do? And what does this do, right? And that it presented a puzzle that if you could figure it out on your own the hard way, but if you went digging and meeting people and asking questions, you could uncover all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, and I mean, when I first started, I would similar sort of. I mean, it was a lot of Reddit for me. There was a gentleman named Rolf Versluis on YouTube. Yeah,
I like Rolf. Yeah.
He was actually I got to meet him in person, and I turned into a total fangirl. He was at the Texas blockchain event in Fort Worth just recently, and I ran into, I had to stop him. But yeah, it was a lot of Reddit, a lot of Rolf's videos, especially on the electrical, like the infrastructure side, because boy, did he is just super knowledgeable guy on all that. Yeah. So I'd be curious when all right, so you found Bitcoin, you got it immediately. I love that you found it in a Playboy. That's hilarious. And then it was like, okay, light bulb moment with the Bitcoin mining. Did you start with a couple in your house? So, again, me and a lot of people you hear, it's like, oh yeah, you buy a couple of these. Unfortunately, Dragon was one of the first ones that you bought. Was some of those. Did you plug them in at home? How'd you like start with the Bitcoin miners?
I was just thinking, and this conversation begs the question: does anybody have just one miner?
Probably
I don't think
not.
so.
No, well, maybe very briefly. Yeah, for like just a little bit. Yeah.
and that's what it was like. That's what it was like. I'm fortunate that I have a little guest house that we never have guests. It's an old one that had a 100 amp panel in it, and so I started plugging them down there as many as I could fit, and just ran with those for a while. They were problematic. So then the M20s came out, 68 terahash. Woo! It was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, that's 4 times what I was just mining with.
Yeah.
And,
it was hard
I think of it.
I was gonna say it was hard to keep a handle on the increase in efficiencies on those ASICs back in the early days.
Yeah. But I was telling my wife or somebody the other day, like I can remember when S9s or these Dragons were turning, over 200,000 sats a day. And now we're 23 if we're lucky.
Yeah.
But I think I got to probably 6 or 8 down in the casita and realized I wanted more. And just set a goal. Like, I want to have a megawatt of miners. And the reason I want to have a megawatt of miners is that they're going to earn Satoshis for me for as long as possible. And so I just want, to be able to mine and get my fair share for as long as I possibly can.
Sure.
And that matched up with everything else, right? So I'd reset goals in life, right? So you change your business from an exit to a sustainable, right? Well, everything else kind of changes. And so that fit really well, Here I have these two companies, and my teams are running them well, and I can see a future there where they continue to run them. And there's not a whole lot I can mash on the gas pedals on a 20-year-old software testing company or a 15-year-old educational software company. And being an entrepreneur, if I don't have something to do, I'm going to get in trouble.
Yep.
And so this provided an outlet for creativity and systems building and stuff like that allowed me to give an appropriate level of attention to my businesses so that they thrive and sustain and contain all of my monkey business over here in the mining world. And so, and it wasn't long. I didn't noodle on that long. I immediately started. So my strategy was to accumulate the machines in hosting.
Okay.
And then by the time I hit the 300 mark, then it would be time to get into a container and either, on cheap electricity or even just fully jump to gas and some kind of partnership with a natural gas genset. That was thinking at the time. Man, I was a year behind. I got to 200 and the hosting deal started unwinding underneath me. And I couldn't even keep 200 running while I was trying to get the damn mine built. And so I was a year behind, but knew I needed to do it. And I was talking to my buddy Jeff, and he said, "Hey, I read on the Compass Gripe Telegram group that there's cheap electricity in Iowa. Let's go look." And we did.
Oh, wow, just like that.
Yeah. Well, I got shit deteriorating in hosting, and I'm, not a good situation. And and Jeff his dad had a farm there, and so location would be solved. It's it's a little bit of Bob Burnett's trilemma type of thing, right?
Yep.
So capital, cheap power, and I guess miners.
Yep.
So we got it sounded good. The power co that we were talking to. And then once the actual account people got in rather than the salespeople, it went from like 6 cents to 9 or 10 variable. And we're like, well, this shit won't work.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know the difference pubco to co-op at that point in time, but I looked around, and I've always been a co-op customer because I grew up in the country and still live in the country. So I understand co-ops. And I looked, and Iowa has a bunch of them. And, there's the first thing that they teach you in marketing classes, there's an association for everything.
Yep.
And lo and behold, there's an association of Iowa rural co-ops. Iowa IAEC, something like that. Anyway, I tried with their CEO, being full of piss and vinegar and all, and got no answer whatsoever. But then I went and I was like, well, there's the members there. Let's figure out their email addresses. And so I hired a guy on Upwork to do all that scraping and stuff, and sent out 33 or 34 emails, and literally put Bitcoin in the subject line and some kind of nice, hey, I'd like to talk to you. I'm a small miner and this kind of thing. And out of 33 or 34 of them, 3 of them actually answered me. I say that they didn't immediately press the delete button.
Yeah. Keep going.
So we talked with them and actively engaged with all of them. Come to find out, they were all members of a larger co-op that was interested. And so their only difference would be, geographic location and maybe a difference in what portion of the infrastructure they would pay for, pulling wires, how much they'd pay for, and what your facility charges. But it's negligible. All your costs are upstream.
Yeah.
I selected this one because they had a transformer for me. There's risk, but it lowered my capital getting in because I didn't have to buy that transformer, right? Guaranteed, if they need it somewhere else, they're going to come get it. My only hope is that if I pull more power through it than somebody else's quote unquote emergency need, then maybe they'll go grab another one instead of mine.
Yeah.
We talked a lot. Like, why do you want to do this? Garrett, the CEO of this REC, went back and worked with Corn Belt, which is the co-op above that, and I can explain that kind of stack if you want.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
They came up with a tariff rate for us called the Bitminer rate. So we have a tariff called the bit miner rate, but it was very attractive, under 5.5, and
Oh, you're giving all the
then I got
secrets of
really.
IO away now, Jeff. That's it.
Yeah, dude, there's spots. I can't
I
build them
know, I
out.
know.
There's spots for the
Yeah,
right people. Happy to.
yeah,
In fact, I was met a guy on Telegram that listened to the other one that said, "Hey, any more?" And I said yes.
yeah.
And so still in touch with those other two co-ops because they want a miner. Um, there's a big hickey in that with the potential rate change that's coming next summer. So if you'll remind me, I'll tell you about that. So the next part is location, and that's hard. It's hard. Our play to the co-op was that it doesn't. We're looking for a substation with excess capacity and a location as close as possible to that.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't cost the co-op anything to have us come in. There's a cost sharing that they'll do with you on the wires from their pole to your transformer.
Now, on that, Jeff, is that like they'll like you initially pay for it and then they'll start discounting on your bill to buy those cables back from you, or because some groups will do that too. I'm just curious if that's what these guys were doing with you.
It's different for each co-op, and you need to sit down and talk with
Yeah.
the external supervisor and who puts together the estimates and the costs, and then the CEO and office manager about what that's going to look like. And it's going to be a little bit different with each one depending on how they value as a customer and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Um,
our promise is literally no cost to get us in. Some will make you pay for the meter. Mine don't make me pay for the meter, right? So there's all kinds of different things. But the business is like there's no cost to you guys to come in for us to come in and start writing you big checks.
yeah. So actually, Jeff, I want to pull you kind of all the way back in that story. Like you said, I think you mentioned it as you're an entrepreneur and you've got these two businesses already up and running. You needed something to kind of help you stay out of trouble. Having started a business and then bought the second business, and then you said you sort of touched on it with like you kind of mapped out what the business was going to look like for all this. Did you like how were you evaluating Bitcoin mining? So I know you said how many sats possible, but did you build out a big old spreadsheet that helped you forecast the Bitcoin? You're laughing as I say that, but I'd love to
Dude,
hear how you how'd you map that out?
I modeled the snot out of it so
Oh,
many
you did?
different
Okay.
ways. Oh God, I
Okay.
did. I had to model it as a business, so I look at it from kind of two different standpoints. So it is a business from an
Yeah.
operating standpoint. It's got an entity. It's got bank accounts. It has transactions. It pays
Mm-hmm.
taxes. Blah 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 blah. The difference, and this came out of my CEO groups, is talking about as a business owner or entrepreneur, what do you have to leverage, right? Because that's it. Otherwise, you just work for yourself. You sell your time, right?
Right.
After
That's right.
that, it's gaining some leverage, and that's what we do in business: is that we amass resources and apply leverage, right? And so, and leverage gives you some benefits, but they all have some cost, right? And so, one of the biggest forms of leverage is your customers. We love selling to existing customers because the cost of selling to them is zero. You're talking
Yep.
to them anyway, right? Um, but Bitcoin mining doesn't have any customers. We're price takers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a benefit in that I don't need any customer support lines. I have zero cost involved in customer support because I have no customers. I'm a price taker.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we leverage specifically is employees, right? We leverage their time. They sell their time to us, and we keep a portion of that and mass and leverage that. But this business doesn't have any employees either. It's got
Oh,
me.
not many. Not many. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's me, right?
Sure. Sure. Sure.
And
Yeah.
so those, but and all that to say is that one of the reasons that I've been successful over time, sustainably, is the ability to build systems that work and recognize the goals and the constraints, right? And so one of the constraints for this is You don't have any customers, there's nothing to leverage there, and you have to take a price, whatever they pay you. The other one is you're never going to have any employees, so you have to design the business so that it doesn't need or expect employees. And so it's just got a fundamentally different design as an operating business entity. In my head, from how do I treat it relative to the other two businesses, it looks more like managing a retirement portfolio than it does anything else.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and when I get profits or distributions from the other businesses, I need money to live on, so I pay those expenses. But then I'm old, right? So the older you get, the scarier you get about not running out of money. So you save more and more. It's all backwards, right?
Yeah.
But I get these profits now, and so little. And what am I going to do? Put it in a savings fund? No, it's not going to stay in cash. So I kind of have three choices. I can buy Bitcoin, I can buy a miner, or I can buy a place to put a miner. And I go through those choices, as it comes in. And right now, I build these out of cash flow. I built a Giga with some Bitcoin leverage. It got smacked real hard on that shit. So I'm just building the rest of it out of cash flow. And that's why the smaller containers work for me, right? It's
Sure.
cheaper to buy an 8x8 350 kilowatt than it is to buy another 1 megawatt Giga.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah. And I suppose it affords you some modularity too, right? You don't have to. Yeah. That's.
It ticks the box for some optionality in the future. Let's see if we need that or it's available when we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. So I ask about the modeling and looking at it, from an actual business because, obviously you have your publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, and I know that they put pen to paper and map this thing out as a business, but there are a lot of people that will just kind of wing it. So I was just curious how you were, like, what your mental model was as you were kind of starting up, a couple in
My
the guest
my
house, hosting, etc. Yeah.
so the difference for me is that I'm really really clear on what this enterprise's goals are, which is to accumulate as many satoshis as possible. Pubco miners have a different goal. They're maximizing their stock price. It's a completely
Yeah.
different game. It's just a
Yeah.
completely different game, right? And so they do things in support of that strategy and goal, and I do things in support of my strategy and goal. And so a perfect example: if you're gonna have a mine without any employees, it has to work fully remotely. And
Yep.
I spent a good year piloting a remote mine control system down in my casita, and
Oh,
learned
cool.
a ton
Yeah.
of lessons. Yeah, yeah. Like when we curtail, when we turn our machines off, I turn them off at the outlet. I don't use the miner software to put them into sleep mode. And there's two reasons for that. One of them is that sleep mode still burns 180 watts. And we're paying $22 and change over kilowatt hour that we burn during control. So I don't have to do that. I don't want to. It's another layer of software, and I was never really confident in getting them all to control quickly using their software and another software management tool.
Yeah.
And
You're
so
using Foreman.
it just fit. I was at the time,
Yeah.
and used Foreman for a long, long time until it wouldn't find my device mix, and I couldn't get support to get that problem solved. So that was the compelling event for me to switch over to Lincoin Agent.
Gotcha. So
Yeah,
I'm super fascinated by the whole like automation and just being able to remotely control it. So it sounds like you're probably using smart PDUs then, since you're turning off at the
you
outlet,
have
or
to. You have to. Yeah.
what
No, you
about
have to use automate.
yeah, what about like a shunt on the main breaker, or do you ever look into like a main breaker kill switch type thing? You're shaking your head
Yeah,
no.
yeah. It's real expensive, and I couldn't come up with a situation where that would be the juice was worth the squeeze.
When you say super expensive, I don't even, maybe I'm totally out of touch with it. Do you remember how much something like that was when you were? I'm asking you this. I'm personally and selfishly very interested in that type of remote shut off.
Equal to the price of the breaker, if not more expensive.
Hmm. Okay.
Think about it. It needs the same mechanics. Doesn't need the same current control, but needs the same physical mechanics, right?
How about now? I'm guessing you looked at the cost of all of the smart PDUs, like on a almost apples to apples comparison in the cost of that shunt. Is it the same, or it's? I mean, it sounds like the smart PDUs are a cheaper route, kind of all totaled up.
They were for me, and it worked out well. I ran them too hot and had some problems with some of them, and if I'd have done that with the shunt or hit the full breaker that hard, it would have it would have shut down all of them till I could do the replacement. So one of the things too to look at is what kind of shunt there there's a power rate, an old power rate that they can radio control a master switch on your transformer to shut you down. Yeah, our co-op doesn't offer that anymore, but they have the signal to turn you on and off literally at the transformer level. But that's a shunt or a switch that
Yeah.
yeah. Is that
And what? Yeah, I mean, I guess would you see something like that as not a good option if your co-op provided that? Would you take that instead of doing the smart PDUs, or do you like having that control at the outlet?
I wouldn't do it instead of the smart PDUs, but I would take it at the drop of a hat because it transfers all the risk from me to them.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. It sounds like a good deal to me. Yeah, it sounds like a good deal to me. Because I know some of them do that. Yeah, no, those are some selfish questions. Most people that listen to the show know I also work at Giga Energy, so those are things I'm personally very interested in. Is how do we, how can we bring that value to customers with their infrastructure? Because curtailment's a big thing, so it's a big piece of the business.
We've been spot on the whole time. There's a little bit of custom programming. We use the Orient PDUs. They're fine. I like them, and
all right.
and I don't need mechanical switches, nor have I been sold pitched on any new PDUs for my impending deals. You guys, Giga may not want me back as a customer. I may be one of those on the no more hopes customer list.
No.
It's too big of a pain in the ass. I'm not an easy customer, but I'm a grateful and valuable one. So, I don't know. My plan is to continue to roll with what I have, because that gives me replacement capabilities. And like I said, I've run those old breakers. PDU's too hard. And Amber's been great getting me spare parts and stuff like that. I'd love to learn more about what Giga's doing. But again, see a different set of goals, right? And so I'm trying to economize and slip through because it's my money, right? And it's like
that's right.
Not all miners are spending their money. Sometimes they're spending somebody else's.
Yeah, a lot of them either raise privately or they're raising publicly through stock dilution. Yeah, it's not intending to be some type of a sales pitch for you, Jeff. Well, what I'd love to do is chat with you again over that beer that we're going to have in person, and I'll just maybe it looks like I get you a PDU to kind of test out and see what you think, type of thing. We can chat about that too. So
excellent.
All right, I want to hear a little bit more about this curtailment program with the co-op. How do you know how many hours out of the year you're down? And off the cuff, I know I'm asking you out of the blue. I don't know if you've got that in front of you or if you remember. Like, is it a lot of curtailment or not a lot?
No. And we've got it tuned. And so the curtailment programs are going to vary by co-op. And they are subject to the curtailment programs from their generation and distribution co-op, generation transmission co-op. And so what ours looks like is that half of the year in the summer, we have a period in the afternoon from like 1 o'clock until 8 o'clock when we're subject to control. The rest of the time, we're not. In the winter, there's two periods. There's a morning period from about 6 to 10 and an afternoon period from like 5 to 8 when they can control. Okay. Everything else outside of those, they cannot control.
Okay.
So there's only certain windows that we have to be aware of the control signal. The way that we work is that the co-op publishes a system demand percentage number, and it varies every minute or so. And we read that, and when it goes above a set point, the scripts go to the PDUs and they say all off, and the PDUs will try and turn everybody off, but it's a noisy network for HTTP API calls. And so the script just stays on it and hammers them off until they're all off, right?
Okay.
Again, what you can do in your own control software that you can't do in somebody else's. And we have 1 second shutdown on them. So they're down within 2 minutes to zero. In the Giga container, our electronics and fan all our 120 volt stuff are run off of a completely separate circuit. So we could turn off the whole transformer there, but it doesn't make sense to do it when it's just easily done and monitored at the outlet level. Remember, anything that you want to control, you also have to be able to read and make sure it did what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
my big lesson in developing that set of control scripts, the guy calls it mind brain, was that it's an IoT problem, not a regular programming problem, and mainly because of the questionable availability of every resource that you make a request of. Apps on your machine, they're all right there, right? Everything's there, and as long as you got internet. But you may have some recalcitrant heat sensor that's not giving you any information. Well, what do you do then? And you got to be able to think through all that kind of stuff and get that built out. And we're still building. We still find features. Anyway, when it hits that set point, we'll turn everything off, and then we'll wait till we have 2 set points so that we don't bounce. And so we'll wait to come below the off point down to a lower on point, and we'll kick on. We're still bouncing. We tuned it for the summer, but it may need a little bit more width because we're bouncing a little bit in the mornings.
Okay.
We controlled twice this morning, like for 30 minutes, and then it said to come back on, but apparently everybody decided to come back on because it went red again, so we had to turn off and then wait a little bit and then turn back on.
Okay.
So we try and prevent the bounce. I call that bouncing, right? So try and be crisp on your off and your on.
Sure. When you say everybody's bouncing, you mean so does the co-op have like a dashboard then that you're watching that says, hey, everybody turn off, like everyone that's in this program and you're in the controllable period, that controllable window? It
has
like
a web page. It has a web
Yeah,
page with a percentage number on it.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
It
That's
also
cool.
it also has colors, red, yellow, green, but you can't control a mine on that. We need the percentage number. And we've been highly accurate. We really haven't blown through any control periods to speak of.
Okay. So on the topic of those control periods, the fact that you're pretty crisp and on the jump and not probably not taking a whole ton of penalty, because you mentioned you've got like a $22 it's probably per kilowatt
Hour.
penalty on that. Yeah, so I mean you're really getting slapped in the face if you miss these control periods. What's the co-op think of all this? I know they were excited to have you. They were one of the 3 that responded, but like, are they happy with how things are going? Are they curious about all this? Like, what are you hearing from the co-ops?
Cautiously curious.
Okay.
I was really fortunate that before we ever turned on and right after they gave approval, the board, the co-op board, they asked to meet me. And Garrett said, I think that'd be a good idea. So I went up there and had lunch with them before their board meeting and just kind of told my story and answered their questions. And they didn't change their mind. They continue to be quite happy, helpful beyond measure. It's a great cooperation. They There was a clause that I didn't notice that could have cost us $1,000 for inactivity. We hooked up a little bit. We initiated the account on the second mine a little bit too early, and it was inactive for a month. And the system billed me $1,000. And I just asked Garrett. I was like, I didn't realize it. Yeah, it's way down here, but we'll waive it because I know what you guys are doing.
Oh wow.
You don't get that. You don't get that with a
No.
Pubco.
Oh no. No.
Well,
Absolutely
and
not.
so here's how it works on the other side. So I did run it in the last half of September and all of October, and their meter was broken. I got a zero bill the next month, and I said, "Hey, this isn't right. We're not full up, but we've been running." And they said, "Well, the meter must be broken." So they didn't get it fixed until the 5th of November, and I said, what should we do? And they go, well, we can't measure it, so we can't charge you. And I said, well, I have all this data on my PDUs. How about I tell you how much we used? And they said, oh, that
Wow.
would be great. And so we did that for the month of October and then kind of the first week of November. Well, if I didn't do that, so the cool thing about co-ops is they don't keep a profit, right? They redistribute all the excess at the end.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing would just be socialized to all the other members. Well, I don't want to do that.
Well, and I mean, the other thing about it, Jeff, is the experience you're giving them is not. There was a particular co-op up here in Minnesota who's had some really bad experiences with Bitcoin mining groups, and so I mean, you're giving them this experience that, yeah, it's allowing them nothing other than to feel comfortable working with you because you're honest, you're upfront. That's incredible. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I just like it's the kind of folks that I want to do business with. In my other two companies, we are very leery about doing business with large companies just because we don't have that many layers of infrastructure ourselves to match up with all the busybodiness that happens, right? Give me a couple of people that actually do some shit. Let's talk and get something done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the co-op's great. So I tell so many stories about it, but so many things I didn't think through. So you got to change filters, and filters come in these 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot cardboard cubes, and I need 11 of them to put in the Giga. Well, where are you going to get that delivered to? Well, where are you going to get that delivered to? The blue box on the hill at 90th and Mallard? Amazon says no.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's a little thing you wouldn't think of. Yeah. So what'd you do?
Totally. Yeah. I asked, could I deliver to the co-op? But they say, yeah, they got a big old warehouse. They held it for me. They have a wash bay so that I can wash my screens.
Wow.
It's like it's in the country. It's kind of like where I grew up. The folks I want to do business with.
That's incredible. You mentioned something else that I'd love to circle you back because you mentioned that you did have some things that you learned along the way. I think maybe to kind of round out the rest of the episode here, it'd be fun to kind of walk through some of those learnings. But do you happen to know, Jeff, you mentioned it again super briefly, that as a co-op they have to distribute all profit. Like they don't yeah.
It's a board decision. It's a board decision subject to their incorporation constitution, but they don't hold excess reserves. They distribute excess reserves. That's what it is.
And maybe it's just a function of we'll need to send this episode to your co-op and say, hey guys, Ben has some questions he'd really love to talk to you about, because I'd love to hear how they go through that process, because I think another function of regulated utilities is if they make over their cap of profit, they have to give it back to the public too, which is potentially troublesome for some utility companies. I don't know.
What do they do? They fill it up with bullshit expenses. Yeah. They've been real closed mouth about that whole process, and it's Iowa. So, man, you got to slide into it gently.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't need the secret sauce to anybody's. I don't need any of that.
I'll have more data in February or March.
Sure,
and
sure.
a check in my hand.
Well, so that's what I'm interested to know is like how, it's extremely cool to me that they're excited and cautiously interested in having Bitcoin miners come onto their system. But then how does that also interact with the profitability with respects to the return that they have to give back? Because I had an individual in a conversation that wasn't an episode or a recording, but he shared that a big potential problem for regulated markets bringing Bitcoin mining on is they're going to make too much money, which blew my mind. The
Yeah,
problem is they're going
that's
to
not the
make the
concern.
utility companies too much money. It's like, well, that sucks.
Um, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's roughly 10 to 15% of my bill goes to the co-op. Everything else is power charges. It's not very much. It's not very much.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting some grand crazy check. Yeah, it's not very much. Most of it's energy charges. And so, related to that, you haven't asked, but we don't have power contracts per se. I'm on
Oh,
a large commercial. I'm on their large commercial account bit miner rate. There's no. It's month to month for all intents and purposes. We had to put up a deposit, and it's horrible. It's a month of the fullest of the maximum you could pay, right? So it's
yeah.
ugly when you consider that $20 a kilowatt hour uh, charge
Oh,
on there.
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
see,
oh,
see,
ooh,
that's
ooh.
what they're protecting against. They're not protecting against not paying the stuff. They're protecting against you making a big mistake and then going, no, I'm not paying, right?
That's
And so
fair.
that's fair. That's fair. I understand that. So our co-op, Franklin, along with Prairie and all the other most in Iowa, belong to are members of a co-op called Corn Belt. And Corn Belt is known as a generation and distribution or
Okay.
transmission. Sorry,
Generation
generation and
transmission. Yeah. G
transmission.
and T.
Yeah,
Yep.
they have a couple of, and you can see how they socialized it from when it was REAs got started in the Depression and all that. You just see the map and the growth and that kind of stuff. But they separated these things out when they made Basin, and so Basin is largely generation and transmission, 8,000 megawatts. Um, the Corn Belt is a member of Basin Co-op. So you can just go look these up, right? So Basin
Sure.
Co-op
So
is
it's
the
just kind
Uber
of, yeah.
power provider. Yeah, up in North Dakota and all they got co-ops all the way down in New Mexico. And over in Iowa. You can go to the website, see it. But Basin is made up of all these corn belts out there. And the corn belts are made up of the Franklins and stuff where we buy our power through. They last summer, they kicked up a big fuss and said, we're going to put all these bit miners on a market rate. And there was a lot of uncertainty. In fact, my CEO came and told me that the
Hmm.
morning that I was, digging a hole to put a new pod in. It was like, hey, rates are going to change. They put off anything in the corn belts of the world and the Franklins of the world are really frustrated with Basin. But what's underneath the core of their fear, my understanding is that Basin is concerned about a transient desire for long-term generation. They don't want to build generation assets for bit miners that may only be here 4 or 5 years. And so they're
Okay.
saying, look, all bit miners, we're going to buy your power at market rate. But they haven't put together anything. They're working on something. So we're subject to rate changes, at any time where we are.
Hmm. I
The
suppose that's
benefit
the,
is that
yeah.
the only benefit we have there is that our co-ops are fighting tooth and nail for us. They want us. They see the value. We're like we don't ask for anything, and we'll come write big checks.
Yeah, well, what I'm failing to understand, and you said Basin, I forget the full name of that generation and transmission company.
Basin Power Cooperative.
Okay, thank you. Um,
Mhm.
what I fail to not see, or what I'm failing to understand, is that they're saying that they don't want short-term customers and what they said was 3 to 5 years. But I'm sure they have to build out more generation. I mean, who's going to be the customer otherwise? It's take the customer when you have it,
It's
right? It's
so go look at the About Us page on the Basin Board of Directors page.
okay.
And you'll quickly understand why they're reticent to build more generation.
Interesting.
Particularly in the sizes that Bitcoin miners are asking for, right? So they're not reacting to me asking the co-op if they have a spare megawatt and a half on this substation.
You're talking like the 50 meg.
Correct.
Right? You're
Correct.
talking
That's what's got them scared.
The big guys, yeah.
That's what's got them scared. That's what got them scared. So kind of the sub rosa strategy that we're working on is that they'll give that basin will establish a large miner rate, but let the G&T co-ops like Corn Belt use their own discretion.
Yeah.
For mines less than 2 megawatts. That's kind of the strategy that they're working on for us.
You should see if they
keep
can do
our
five,
rate. We
five,
could keep
you
we could keep our rate. I like I said, always on the table is I'll give you the switch.
Yeah.
Man, what could be better? You control your own variable load, right? But we're subject. There's all that uncertainty out there in where we are in our power prices.
Yeah, I just wonder if Basin is at like an impasse, or they're staring at like a fork in the road. Like, we have to build more generation, which is going to cost money, and then because they have to build more generation, they want a reliable customer that can forecast a business model past 10 years, which it's.
So
I wonder if they're kind of staring. Yeah, I wonder if they're kind of staring down the barrel of that decision, and that's why they're doing this goofy.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I mean, at that super large load level, right? It completely makes sense. And look at them, right? And so I learned this when I'm kind of researching the next when electricity is too expensive, where do I go? And Daniel Batten's pursuing this and the methane and the landfill and stuff like that, right? And I was looking at that stuff, and there are no pockets or edges because those things are so expensive to build that they can't get the bonds to build them unless they've got a large percentage contractually pre-sold for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Off-takers is what they call them, and I hate that word.
Yeah.
Off-takers.
Oh, it's I mean, that's what happened to NuScale. The small modular reactor. I mean, they had to fold everything up because the only long term customers with an S that could take sizable amounts of power were some cities, and they all turned away from it because the power rate went up and cost of the project went up. Anyways, it's I don't know. I guess, Jeff, do you model out the Bitcoin mining operation longer than 5-10 years?
The thing I learned about modeling is that it's absolutely worthless for predicting what's going to happen in the future. It's beautiful for understanding what just happened to you, but it's just completely worthless. And that's Bitcoin's taught me that. The more that I try and apply fiat thinking or notions or that kind of stuff, the more I get just whacked hard. And so I'm very specific about this. It is like the long-term goal here is to stack Satoshis for as long as possible. And I'm always looking for that next cheap landing spot. Because I know, it did my heart good. I can mine for under $5 hash price, just barely, but I can get there where I am at under $5 hash price. And somebody boldly said 501 is the floor forever. I do have the advantage though. Like if they do move us to a variable power rate, well, I can turn those miners on and off. I can watch the power price just like I watch, these guys. So, change the game. That's okay because I'm set to have the mine kind of manage itself.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you're doing is you are in real time keeping, the power companies on their toes as well, because, you've got containerized solution for your mining operation, and you'll go find the next power company that'll take you. So, um, just
I
to
know there are so many substations out there that got excess capacity. I
yeah,
know. I drive by them on my hunting trips.
yep. Oh yeah, Ottertail Power up in they're kind of on the outskirts of Minnesota, up in the North Dakota, South Dakota. They won't get into the power rate that you're talking about, but it'll be steady, and they got a lot of. I talked to Kevin Quoba over at Ottertail. He's part of their economic development, and they've got some pockets that'll take you. Yeah. Well, Jeff, just to keep a tab on the time, I know it's Monday. You're being gracious with your time, so I won't keep you for too much longer. But I was curious. I'd love to hear. You've mentioned it several times. This is kind of the retirement plan. This is the goal. Let me try that again. Stack as many sats as possible. Do you have, like, are you going to scale up? Are you going to 5 megawatts? Or you maybe just share, like, what's we know the end goal, stack as many as possible, but are you going to grow with the network like most people do? Like, what's the future look like?
This site has capacity for just under 2 megawatts, and I'll fill that capacity. Um, I would help somebody build another. I don't want another one. I want to run these machines. These are all S19, and they'll replace them. Most of mine are J Pro 104s and 110 Pros. I've somewhat minors. No, I don't want to feel like it's a job. I still love going up there, but now it's going to take 2 days to change and wash filters, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's just pure hard physical work. And I don't ever want to go up. And plus, I got an acre to keep track of. And you know what? They get on you if you let the weeds grow. You have to keep the weeds sprayed down in
Wow.
Iowa, or there's a man, the county supervisor will come tell you you need to get your weeds under control. I don't mind that. I'd like it's okay, great, but I don't want
Oh,
to
good for the
feel
pheasant.
like I have to go maintain. Yeah, right. I don't want to feel like I have to maintain
Yeah.
somebody else's. So probably not. This is enough, and that's part of aging gracefully is understanding when enough is enough.
Sure. Yeah. 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 Okay.
So,
Well,
and I'm
yeah.
semi-retired, and I just want it to fit in with everything else. And I love going up there. I love the people and the friends that I make and the work that I do. So yeah, it's kind of enough. But I'd be happy to help somebody build others. And like I said, there's 2 more spots that I know of. If you're kind of think like me and want to have that kind of Bitcoin mind, then happy to help.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah.
I personally, I really like conversations like this because it's so different of an approach, and it's the right approach for you. It's a great approach. Like, it's working for everybody really nicely. And what I'm hearing you say is like, and that's how it should be. So I love that, and I appreciate that. So, Jeff, I normally at the end of the show, I always leave room for my guests to give a handoff, and if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way people can find you? Is that LinkedIn, email, Twitter, Telegram? I don't know what works best for you, but if you want to leave a handoff so folks can reach out, I'd happy to let you do that now.
Well, thanks. JCHOTZ on Twitter and Telegram. Reach out. Happy to chat. Tell you my bullshit. Listen to yours.
Awesome, Jeff. This has been an absolute blast. I appreciate it a ton, and yeah, you'll have to get me out shooting at birds pretty soon here.
We'll
It'll be
do it.
fun.
We'll do it.
Awesome. You take care.
Thanks, man.
All right.